Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you the normal mapping process inside Maya, and it's going to be a little more lengthy video because I've decided to show a little bit more details and talk a little bit about the whole thing so that you can actually learn a thing or two. Especially if you're a complete newbie, then you should be able to pick it up quite easily and nicely. Okay, so with that, let's get started. This is my low poly model. It has 4 corners like this and 4 connectors. Okay, that's it, and let me show you the high poly. This is the high poly that I wanted to transfer over to the low poly then. The connectors with a few details over here, and the corners with 2 parts right next to it, and just like that. So, the first thing you need to think about is that your low poly model needs to have a nice and clean UV layout. So let me show you mine. There it is. Now these are the corners, and these are the connectors. And as you can see, the connectors are right on top of each other, and that is actually a big no-no when it comes to baking out your normal map. If you have things stacked on top of each other like this and you try to bake it out, it's going to be a very messy normal map in the end, so you do not want that. So there are a few things you can do. In my case, let's see, because my connector is identical to this connector and this one and this one, so I can just bake out one of these and the details are going to be transferred over to the rest ones, so that's going to be fine in my case. However, if you cannot do that in your case, what you could do then is you could select the parts or the UV shells, and then let's see, open up your UV texture editor. Make sure you're inside the absolute mode by clicking this button. It should be grayed out, and then you can go over here, enter on number 1, hit enter, and your UV shells will be moved outside the 0 to 1 UV texture space. As you can see, it's right outside of it, so it's not going to be calculated when you start to bake. And now with that, you can select everything and then basically bake it out. But in my case, because I'm just going to be using this thing to be baking out with, then I don't need to select these guys, so I can move it back in my case. We move it back just -1, hit enter, and it should be coming back right where it was supposed to be. Okay, as you can see, there it is, perfect. So now you want to select all your low poly models, parts that you want to bake out, and then go into the rendering menu set by going over here, click on the rendering, and then over here, lighting and shading, click on transfer maps. Now if you have stuff selected while you click this transfer maps, they are automatically gonna be added to the target meshes. If you had nothing selected, this is how it will look like. So if you have nothing there, just select everything you need, click add selected, and they're gonna be there. Perfect. Now do the same thing but for the source mesh. Source meshes is where the high poly models are going to go. Target meshes are the low poly models. So let's see. I'm gonna select everything. Yeah, everything, why not? And then click on add selected at the source message. Click, and there you get filled out. Perfect. Now, the next thing you're gonna need to know about is the envelope, or as other applications may call it, a cage. Every time you add a mesh over here, you can go to display and you can see an envelope or both. If you click on envelope and actually show my low poly model, this is what it will give you. It's like a duplicate of your model, and you can actually adjust the size of it. And this is actually indicated where it will look like, where it will look for the information of your high poly model. So let's see. In my case, it's almost perfect here actually. If I can just frame up on this. However, one thing that you can notice here is that this envelope, everything inside this is going to be calculated, and inside this is actually a little bit portion of this cylinder or this connector, whatever you want to call it. So even that is going to be calculated, and I actually don't want that. So what you need to do with a bit more complicated models, or models that has a lot of parts, so floating parts and intersecting parts and stuff like that, you actually want to move them away from each other. So in my case, I'm just going to clear everything and clear everything here as well. Oh, actually I need to add this guy to the target mesh so I can remove this envelope because it's bugging me. Okay, there you go. So what you need to do then is you need to separate the different parts that you want gonna be using. So if you don't want to mess up your original poly, then you can just original model, you can just make a duplicate, which I'm gonna do. Control D, remove them from this layer, and I have a layer called LP, as in low poly exploded. I'm gonna add them there, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the high poly models. Control D, remove from that, and add to the high poly exploded. So if I show both of these now, low poly and high poly model, now I need to separate these parts from each other. So anything that intersects like this, I'm gonna be moving out. So I can select these guys, not this guy, and then move out. Same thing with this and this, move them out. And I can just take this guy, actually never mind. Let's just take this guy, move it up a little bit, this guy, move it down. So now it's exploded basically. This is my low poly and this is my high poly. Yeah. So these are the ones you actually want to add into the transfer maps place. So if I select these guys and this guy, I will go to lighting shading, click on transfer maps, and let's see if I just select envelope on this guy. Okay, I'm just gonna see if I can move it. Yes, I can. Sometimes you cannot move it, and if that's the case, like if you have duplicated an object and the envelope doesn't move, get bigger or smaller when you do this, it's because, can be because if you go into the outliner, it should have an envelope over here. If it has two or others, you can just delete the extra one or delete everyone, re-add it over here in the target mesh, and it should be able to be good and go. Okay, so with this I have selected now everything that I need to bake out here in the low poly meshes. Let's do the same thing with the high poly. It's these guys, these, just this, and these guys. Go to source meshes, click on add. Perfect. So now I am completely done over here with that portion. Now the envelope. Let's talk about this a little bit more and actually show my low poly as well. There you go. As I said, everything inside this will be calculated, and even outside if you actually use one of these different methods, like closest to envelope. It will search for outside, but I will talk about it a bit later. So yeah. So you basically what you want to do is you want to have this envelope as close to your high poly mesh as possible, and without it sticking out or anything like that. And I think this is actually fine. This is perfect. Nothing is sticking out, nothing is being stupid. 3.8 is actually perfect. Oh, and also if you, in case you don't know, you can actually select this guy, click on vertices, and you can actually move it out and deform it a little bit to your model as much as you want without any problems. So it's just like a model you can do whatever you want with. So where am I in my space? Okay, I'm gonna show the envelope for this, and this as well. If you show both, then that just means both the low poly and the envelope is going to show. Envelope is just showing this envelope, this pinkish thing. Okay, let's see. Where am I now? That's not it, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. Okay, in this case, as you can see, wow, I can actually show this. So this one is moving when I'm making it big and small. 3.8 is going to be fine, but apparently one of these aren't. Okay, this is not. This is moving, this is moving, this is moving. Okay, so this one is messed up. So in my case, let's see, it's corner, it's the sixth one. Let's hide the high poly ones. Select this guy and just select mesh. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the selected one from my target meshes, go to the outliner and see what I can see here. Ah, look at that. It has two envelopes. It's because sometimes when you duplicate, it duplicates different stuff as well. So just gonna delete all of these, both of these envelopes, just like that. Close out the outliner and just re-add it. And now if I select envelope, it should be able to move up and down. Okay, perfect. So 3.8, there you go, corner 3.8, corner 3.8. Now there's connector. Let's show my high poly so I can see how far out it's gonna be. There you go, 9.6 is gonna be fine. The closer you have it, the more accurate representation of the bake is going to be. If you have it too far out, for instance, it can be a little bit blurry or some other messy stuff. So you want to have it close. 9.6 is what I wanted. Perfect. So now it's all set up. The next step now is to click on any maps you want to actually bake out. In our case, of course, it's the normal map. So let's just click this normal map button and it will show up over here. So the position where I want to put this normal map is in the source images tutorial, and I'm just going to choose TGA and example. Save. Okay, include materials. I usually have it unchecked, because what happens if you have it checked, if your high poly model has any materials, any source materials like a bump map or anything like that applied to them, applied to the high poly, not the low poly, then it's going to be calculate that as well. So if you have, for instance, have a bump map on this guy with and all broken up and everything, that is going to be calculated inside your bake. So your normal map is going to have that bump map as well baked into it, if you have this checked. If you have it unchecked, it's just going to be the clean normal map, and that's all, most of the time that's what you want. Tangent space is what I want to do. Basically, if you want a tangent space map or object space, tangent space is the most common one. Object space is good for inanimate objects if you don't have any animations on it, so that's good. Use my common settings. That is what I'm going to do. If you want, you could uncheck this and use mental ray, but you will have to put on another option inside of mental ray options. Like if you uncheck this and then go to the rendering settings, and inside your mental ray, inside mental ray, go to options, and inside translation and performance, check Maya derivatives. When you do that, then you can use this portion, Maya mental ray. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna use Maya common settings. It's basically which one you prefer. It's both. It's a good result with Maya common settings as well. Okay, connect output maps. I usually have it unchecked as well. If you have it checked, then what happens is after a bake, it will connect the normal map to a new shader, completely new one, or any assigned shaders you have to your models. So if you have a material on your models, then it's going to be adding the normal map to that material or a new shader. But I don't want it to do it. I just do it myself later on. So I uncheck that. Okay, my common output. Here we come to the meat of it a little bit more. The size of your map, obviously, it's obvious. Keep aspect ratio. You transfer in world space. This is if you need to have your objects stacked on top of each other when you do this world space. You don't have to be in the middle of the space in the world or the center of it, but the objects need to be on top of each other. There is also an object space and UV space. I'm not going to talk about them too much. Object space is you need to have everything on top of each other, freeze transformations on everything, and then you can move out your high poly models from the low poly model, so you can have them like beside each other without any problems. But yeah, I'm not gonna more than that. I'm not gonna talk about that. Preview. This is yeah, the quality of your map. I'm gonna be using preview for this purpose, but what you would want is either medium or high or something like that. If you're doing it for a big project or whatever, or if you just want to do it for tests, then you should be preview. Filter size is kind of like the anti-aliasing, or how you pronounce that. The shorter the number, the sharper. The lower the number, the sharper the normal map is going to be. The higher the number, a little more softer it's going to be, like kind of blurry or something. Filter type Gaussian, triangular, and box. Yeah, that's good. The Gaussian is good if you want to have it post-processed in Photoshop or something later on. Fill texture seams is like how many bleed or on the edges, how many extra pixels you want the normal map to be filling out the edges of your UV shells. And then these you can just ignore basically. And this is for characters if you want to flip any mirrored faces and stuff. Okay, with that, I'm going to be closing that up. Actually, you can go on, have it open. Now, advanced options, you actually want to do this as well. Here is the search method. You have 3 to choose from. Closest to envelope is, well, closest to envelope. What it usually does is look for the details outside the envelope. You can actually look up my help for it to have a little bit more nice graphic. I can actually show a envelope. Oh, they are shown. I just have them hidden. No, not you. Perfect. Closest to envelope is basically it searches for things outside of it. Then inside and outside the envelope, yeah, it does what it says it does. It searches for things inside it and then outside it, and then inside only. I have inside and outside for my case. It's going to be perfect. And the search depth, if you have it set to 0, it's going to be infinite. It's going to be searching basically everywhere. And if you want like certain objects, you don't want like the back of an object to be calculated. You could use the max search depth to something else, and just play around with the settings till you get what you want. Delete envelopes on bake. You can do that if you have manipulated your own envelope or cage. You may want to uncheck this so it doesn't destroy this envelope and redo the whole, and you will have to redo the whole thing again later on. So in my case, they are completely standard, so it doesn't matter which I have, if it's checked or not checked. And surface normals and geometry normals. Surface normals are good for hard-edged objects. Geometry normals are good for soft-edged stuff. And I've actually done both of these, and surface normals are better in my case, because my objects are more hard than soft. Okay, so with that, everything is good to go. I can click bake, and it's going to take a little bit of time, so I'm going to pause here, and it's going to come back. Actually, it's going really fast, but I'm going to pause anyway because I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, so now it's done, and I'm back as well. So let's take a look at the normal map it created for us. Here it is. Let's zoom in. It's looking fine for a first test, but it has some issues over here. As you can see, the edges are a bit weird. But let's just plug it into Maya and see how it actually looks like inside there. So let's start Hypershade. I'm gonna create a Fong. Oops, no, don't do that. And then a file. Delete this node because I don't need that. Plugin, choose tangent space normals, and then plug in this guy. So with that, let's just move things out of the way. Move the things out of the way. Turn the grid off because it's disturbing me. And up sign. Apply. Number 6 on the keyboard doesn't do anything because the renderer needs to be viewport. Oh. Okay. let's pick on this guy. So it's actually working. The normal map is do work, but there are a few issues. As you can see, the edges are a bit dark for some reason. Some of these things could be because of here they are a little bit more fine on this guy. Actually, this is perfect on just over here, guy, but not over here. Some of these can be because let's see if I just go to 5. As you can see, these are the hard edges. If I smooth these edges and these guys as well, and then rebake, then let's see. I'm going to be renaming this to example 2 and just do a quick rebake, and it's almost done here. 70, 99. Okay, just finished. This guy I can just move out of the way. Okay, so take a look at the second. Actually, let's plug it in. The second one, perfect. And hit number 6. Minimize that. And yeah, this actually did fix it. Much cleaner. It's perfect. So I would have to do the same thing on the other guys as well. Smooth these edges and just rebake, and hopefully it will fix that. If that doesn't fix it, then just do some other things, depending on what your model. But as you can see here, these edges are, yeah, well, this looks really weird. Really black edges over here. But this cannot be fixed by making it smooth or anything. It is only, oh, look at that. This, you would have to bevel these edges to add a little bit more detail, so it would be easier for the normal map to actually, you know, do their thing. Because this is just how it works, the normal mapping and everything, because of the hard, really sharp angle of everything. So you would have to basically bevel these guys. I'm not gonna do that. Let's go to this guy, check on this. Some issues over here as well. Okay, this I can already tell it's because of my UV layout. This is very common because of how my UV layout is actually laid out. Let's see, which one is which? Is this the top? Yep, this is the top. Because of how it is laid out, it's not a perfect, you know, placement. If I move this guy, for instance, you could see this. I could shape it up to make it a little bit more. Whoops. You know, make it a little bit more correct over here, but it's not going to be perfect either. I would have to completely redo the UV layout for this portion in order for that to actually look good. But now you know what the problem is, why it looks like so, why it looks like the way it does. And also here is a hard edge over here. This, if I just go to 5, it could help by smoothing this as well. Let's just try to smooth this dude. Smooth it. Perfect. Actually, smooth the whole thing. Smooth. And just rebake the whole thing again to number 3. Bake. Okay. And then this time, let's just switch to number 3. Move it back up. And number 6. Ooh, now it looks, yeah, that cleaned the edge over there. So it's really important to know if you have hard edges or soft edges or stuff like that. So keep that in mind when you're baking. Now, if I could just do this again, just really quickly. Yeah, as you can see, this UV layout is completely messed up in this portion. Uh-oh, my phone is ringing. I'll have to pause. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So yeah, I would just have basically to fix this. Closer, closer. Now this is just a really, really dirty thing I'm doing. I'm not even gonna keep it like this, but you know, just to show you, this is a UV layout problem I had. This is why it looks like the way it does. But nothing wrong with the normal map. I didn't smooth this guy, but that's fine. So hopefully that you have learned something, because that is basically it. You have to do some thinking about your actually low poly model, making sure it's smooth where it's supposed to be smooth, not hard edges where, or otherwise you might end up with problems. And even so far, it can go so far as you would have to redo the whole high poly mesh, or some portions or parts of the high poly mesh, in order for it to actually look better on the normal map. So let's see, let's go back to this guy. Yeah, but hopefully you've learned something. This is basically it. If I just go back over here, put this material on this guy, and this would be how it look like. But this guy isn't smooth or anything, so I would have to change this as well. As you can see, it's a bit problematic compared to the other one. So these are just the things you have to keep in mind when doing these normal mapping. But the most important parts is that you would have to need you would need to separate the models from each other, so that the envelope doesn't run into each other and take details from other portions onto like this guy, and that's not good. That's the most important part. So yeah, hopefully you learned something with this, and yeah, take care.